We've all had wonderful experiences with lights at Sun and Fun, and now he's into a new adventure. He's going to tell us all about it today. This is the Association of Professional Warbird Operators. Please give a warm welcome for Leenhouts.
Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate that. I'm very humbled to be here. This is my first NWOC. I'm honored and I'm thrilled, but it's important you all understand that I love you probably more than you love me. You don't know me, but you're the reason I'm standing here today. Because in 1965, I hitchhiked from a little town called Burleson, Texas, to Carswell Air Force Base to see your predecessors. Now, I don't know, maybe somebody in here flew a Warbird in '64 in Carswell. Anybody do that? No? Well, somebody did, and I fell in love right then and there. And my life changed from being a kid that was going to throw hay bales on the back of a flatbed in Kansas to a gentleman that wanted to get into the world of aviation and stay with it all the way through. And I did. So I ended up going through the Navy and then into Sun and Fun, all because of what you do. You represent the heart and soul of the American might of democracy. Warbirds are the best representation of that. So for that, I'm thrilled, and I thank you for letting me be here now. I also want to say, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Why do I want to say that? It's because Disney can't, all right? And we can. There you go. Because that's who we are. We're the men and women, the heart and soul of the American population. So, realizing that, we sat down over the last few years, and I think some of you have heard the socialization of this concept. How do we come together? How do we generate an organization that has the same philosophies and motivation and then sound off as a united voice? Well, it's real easy. Let's see how many of y'all, raise your hands, how many of you want to go one whole year without a single Warbird incident or accident? How many? Well, that was pretty simple, wasn't it? That's halfway there. How many of y'all would like to go the rest of your natural life without another FAA regulation on warbirds? How many like to do that? Well, we just decided we're united. Now we got to get that voice together. So what we're going to propose is, we're going to propose this organization. We hope you'll join, because it's just like our Constitution. This is of the people, for the people, by the people. That's you. This is yours. I am just going to be the mouthpiece. I'm the organizer. And the only reason I got stuck into this because I had one too many cocktails at Reno last year, and I got surrounded by some of my friends, I thought. Turned out they were coercing me into taking this position. I should be on a beach in the Bahamas with an umbrella drink and somebody rubbing oil on my body. But instead, I'm out here. But I'm honored to be here and glad that I am. So starting in September, after 3 years of several of y'all discussing, socializing the concept, we decided, cocktail conversation's over, time for action. What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? Well, the first thing you got to do is decide, what's the problem? Well, the problem is we're making too much noise and we're getting too much bad press. And I say we, that's all of us. So it doesn't matter if you're flying an L-bird, flying a trainer, a fighter, a bomber, a rescue aircraft. If one of us has an incident, we all get labeled from that because of the stereotyping that takes place. This is a 5-minute drill in looking for information about warbird activity in the press. It's not the kind we want. We want to have all those really glorious things they say about how wonderful we are at air shows and how we change the complexion of the youth of today by looking at what they do, what we do, and then you want to join up. And at the bottom line down there, Aviation Week even says, just last year, it's time to rethink warbird flights at air shows. That's got to go away. We've got to change the perception of who we are and how we do it. Rick Siegfried did a great job this morning. He talked about how we could be more professional. That's the goal, because if we do that, then things start changing. Well, here's our mission. It's pretty simple. I don't have to look at it to remember it. Create and maintain the highest level of professionalism across the entire Warbird spectrum of operations. Wow, sounds pretty simple, but it's an every person, all hands on deck effort. We will never get there if we don't all come together and start working towards that. This is kind of interesting. I think you probably all have different perceptions of what professionalism is. Well, let me just tell you how it reads out in your Webster Dictionary. Professionalism involves being reliable, setting your own high standards, and showing that you care about every aspect of your profession. It's about being industrious and organized and holding yourself, this is going to sound scary, hold yourself accountable for your thoughts, your words, and your actions. That's absolutely what professionalism is. And that's what we're going to strive for. So if that's what our mission is, well, what would be our vision? We're going to try to promote it. I didn't say demand it. We're promoting it. This is a motivation. This is a request for everybody to embrace it and not be told to do it, but promote professionalism results in the education, standardization, and safety methodologies that will foster sustainability, mitigate risk, and help the warbird community avoid unnecessary and irresponsibly formed regulation. We don't want that. We want to do it ourselves, and we can. I've had some really great conversations with Mark Gueron over here with our FAA friends. Where are you at, Mark? I saw you back here a minute. There you are, over here. And they're on board, 100%. They like the concept that we, as a unified entity, will decide with consensus what we want to do to ensure that we have that 1 year to start of no accidents. I mean, when I looked at that graph that Doug Rosenthal threw up there yesterday, I mean, we all know about our friends, onesies and twosies, but when you see it across a graph over the last 10, 12 years, and you're going, wow, that's 8, 9, 10 accidents, that's not good. That's steady state. And that's not where we want to be. That needs to go to zero. Now, are we ever going to get to zero? I don't know. I mean, we strive for it in all of our military operations, and when we started figuring out how to manage risk associated with our flight operations, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, our accident rate started going down. But we infused a lot of self-disciplines into that equation. No longer did you have a lieutenant or a captain waiting for somebody to tell them, you know, you really shouldn't fly today. No, that young aviator went, I don't think I'm mentally in the game and I need to walk away from the flight today. Or be in the flight and go over the mission exceeds my skill sets. And that's when you say, I'm out. And you pitch out of the fight and you go back and land. That's the mentality that we've got to get into all of us, both those of us here, who are obviously the ones that are most dedicated to it because you came to NWOC, but get it across the entire spectrum. Everybody that operates an airplane out there. And that's what we're going to shoot for, because this belongs to you. It's an association, and remember, the association connotation is all of us, all right? Everybody's engaged in this. Members, okay, facilitates the development and sharing of best practices and training, safety, standardization, maintenance, operations. We need to input and knowledge to become a consolidated voice for the warbird community. Well, how do you do that? How many of y'all have looked at the website so far? I see some hands out there. Yeah. Greg Gibson put that together. Awesome. It is the platform, the vehicle by which we can insert good ideas, best practices, things that you have found in your operations that would be applicable to a larger audience. Now, don't get me wrong. We all know fully well that some of the rules that would govern trainer operations or fighter operations may not translate to the other platform, but a lot of them do. And so we will have committees that will actually study different flight types, different types of aircraft, different disciplines, and then they will use the ones that most applicable to that aircraft, that airframe, that mission type, and then share those. So as we start building all this information on the website, we'll add different sources of knowledge. Where could you go if you're just getting started in the business? Who is a good person to talk to? How do I reach them? What manual would be best to study? What philosophical book would be good for the way we do business? All of that will be shared amongst all of us. Now, don't think for a second it's just going to be willy-nilly, you send an article in and we just automatically post it. That isn't going to happen. It will be vetted by the committee associated with that aircraft type that will review it, validate it, and then share it. Because once we put it out there, we're recommending that as a best practice. And that will be proven out. Other people will have studied it, and we will have learned. Now, I know Rick talked about we all have, you know, our experiences are founded in bad judgment, and we've all done it. We've all been down that road. We made some stupid mistakes, and we live to tell the story. I would like to think that we're going to help the next generation learn from our mistakes so they don't repeat them. Because if you repeat them, our accident rate will not go down. And just understand this, accidents don't go away by accident. It's purposeful, meaningful, individual effort to prepare and execute the flight, every flight, as a professional, being accountable for your actions. And that's what we're trying to accomplish right here. So, our team, who's on the team? Obviously that's me back in the day when I was a skinny little dude, and that's Patty Wagstaff. A quick story on Patty right there. I took her to the carrier for the very first time, and she'd flown in jets before. She flew with my good buddy Snort, Dale Snodgrass. Everybody knew Dale Snort before his ultimate demise, and that was a really sad loss. But he had taken Patty flying on a Tomcat, and so one day at the bar I said, "So Patty, you ever been to the ship?" "Oh, I've never been to this." "Well, I can take you out there." So I put her back of a Hornet and I took her out to the USS Lincoln, and we get out there and I said, "This landing's going to be a little violent," which it was. They're all very violent, and everybody knows you go from zero down to, from 142, 143 knots down to zero in about 400 feet in 1.8 seconds. So you're like, ugh! She's like, "Oh my God, that's incredible." I said, "Well, you like that, you're going to ride this e-ticket ride. We take the cat shot." So we're hot mic, throttles up, everything's looking good. And that cat fires, and she's back there. And the next thing I hear is, "Holy," and you fill in the blank. Okay, it starts with an F. And from that moment on, she said that's what every Rio should say on the cat shot, because it was so violent, she had no earthly idea. In any event, Patty loved flying off the carrier, and everybody at Wood does, but why do we do that so well? Well, we've learned how to be professional on the cat stroke, on the landing, and everybody flies the airplane, flies a pattern exactly the way it was designed. And nobody deviates, and if you do, you're out of the hunt. Matter of fact, it's fascinating. I don't know if you know this or not, but in carrier aviation, every single landing is graded. And if your grade point drops, grades are 0 to 4. 4 being the best, 0 is the worst. If your grade point drops down below a 3.0, you're gone. And they don't ask you to come back. They don't give you a second chance. They just send you home, because that's not your business anymore. So that's me right there. Who else is in it? Greg Gibson. A lot of y'all know Greg. I'm sure you do. He's a very talented guy. Been in the business a long time. Does a lot of websites, but he's a warbird flyer as well. And quite candidly, he's into the business of helping organize air shows now. So he's a great asset for us here, as you can see him right there. Our board just got fired up. We have co-chairs. You know, once again, this is a team effort, so no one person's in charge. This is all about us working together. So Greg Heiser from what used to be Air Capital, now Assured Partners, is an old warbird flyer. He's one of the co-chairs, along with Hank. All right, Hank with the CAF. Everybody knows Hank. So they share that august position. And then on top of that, we've added in here Bob Stevanik, and Bob's a great mentor for all of us. And so he's part of it, as well as Sean. And right now we've got one outstanding position, because you always want to have 5 on your board, an odd number. And so we've invited another individual who's considering it, and we're hoping that that individual does. So we will have 5 by sometime the end of this month. So you think, well, are you guys really getting anything done here? Well, yes we are, because we've got this kind of backing. Everybody heard Sam yesterday say we're at the crossroads. Well, we're at the crossroads of the crosshairs. And the world is looking at us. And we don't want them to look at us in that negative light. We want them to look at us in a positive light. All right, so we got Sam Graves is back there supporting us 100%. He loves what we're doing. Fred as well. Sean, obviously on his board, he thinks it's a good idea, and he's shot this around throughout the EAA, and they're loving it. Of course you can imagine that. Jack is on board 110%. And it's because we represent the strength of our nation through this incredible aircraft. These are treasures, American treasures, and you are custodians of them. And now we have to make sure that as custodians, we are professional at every single level to ensure that those airplanes and you land and are continuing on in the rest of history. Jack's on board. Well, what about our friend Mark Baker? Absolutely. So they'll probably do an article on us here real soon. I would imagine one of the AOPA magazines within the next 2 or 3 months. They will have a story about we are coming together, as well as our progress. Okay, so we're not just an idea. We're not a theory. This is actionable items. It's done. We started literally in December, and here's where we are today. Our bylaws approved. They've been filed. We've got our articles of incorporation with the state of Florida. Remember, we are not associated with AOPA, NBAA, EAA, CAF, all the alphabet soup. We're here to help everybody. We are the non-denominational church of the high-speed pass. Okay? Non-denominational. We don't belong to anybody. No one owns us. We're here for everybody as a unified voice of action for the community, not for any one specific organization. So that's why we're in Florida, away from everything. Our 501 is going through that. It's a very draconian process, but we'll get it done with the IRS, and we'll be certified as a tax-exempt organization. That's an employee identification number. That's already been acquired. Our bank, our officers of board established bank account is open. About $30,000 worth of donations already. I think we've already passed, just today alone, we passed 23 people have already just in the last couple of days have already started signing up to join. The website's active. You got to go check it out. It's going to grow. It's in its infancy, but it's still pretty robust. Then our office space. I'm sure you've all been down to Sun and Fun. My successor, Gene Conrad, was kind enough to provide us as a supporting agent with office space in their incubator. I don't know if you know what that is. It's where you take small businesses and allow them to work for free in these nice accommodating office spaces. And then he's given us administrative support, so I can use the CFO and I can use the executive assistants, and they'll do all the sorts of administrative needs, because there's only 2 of us in right now. We're a lean and mean fighting machine, but we need help. And so we're getting assistance from Sun and Fun in that regard. The FAA, through Mark Gear, I just spoke of earlier, we had a great conversation this last couple of weeks, and they're right there with us, lockstep. We've already started talking about some tech evaluations, and I'll get into that in a second. But all those sorts of things that we don't want them to do, he's going to help us do it so that they just stand back and applaud. We want them cheering us on, not driving us on. Okay? Well, you can join up, and if you get in before Sunday night, it's half price. Don't be afraid. Lots of members are a good thing. And that's that. And then by the 15th of May, we will call you a founding member. So we'll make another big push at Sun and Fun, and then after that, at 15 May, it'll be just join up and be part of the biggest Warbird organization ever to help everyone as that one unified voice. And I'm sure some of you might be asked that question in your little brain out there. You're going, hey, why doesn't NWOC do this? Well, I talked to Rick about it. There's just not enough administrative support. I mean, this takes a lot of manpower. This is not a job that you just do once a week. There's plenty to do to keep this going. So he likes the idea, and I think all of you should appreciate that we're doing this for you. This is yours. No decision will be made. There'll be no policies put out there, no regulatory direction. These are all concepts that you're going to put together. We will vet them, find consensus, and then share them so that we all win. And what do you get? Well, you're going to get the association of like-minded professionals, a culture, a voice in the Warbird community, unified support, education on insurance, obviously the insurance industry. Let's talk to the insurance for a second here. I think you all know that the insurance company wants your money. They sure do. But they can't get your money if you consistently have accidents, because they won't insure us. So that's a losing situation. We want to be so consistently professional that we don't have accidents. Now we become insurable. So if that really bizarre event does take place, it's out of everybody's hands, then your airplane is covered. But you don't want to have an insurance rate that's skyrocketing because a couple of dudes in their Warbird decided to flat hat through a bridge and somebody dies or it flies into a crowd at an air show, and then we all pay the price for that. We all lose. That's not good. So we want to stop that, and that's what the insurance industry wants to see as well. The FAA wants to see us do it because they don't want to regulate us. So all of those resources there are available to you on the website. You could ask questions, you could go in and look for areas that you might need help. And again, we're not here to tell everybody that, hey, this is the best maintenance shop, and we're just saying, hey, this is a maintenance shop that a lot of people use and they like it. You like it. So if you like it, then somebody else might like it as well. And if there's an AMP or an IA that is really good and has helped you find some issues with your aircraft, why not put their name out there? And I'm talking not onesies and twosies, but I mean the entire community says that's a go-to place, that's a go-to guy, that's a go-to individual that flies that aircraft type that knows how to do it well, and they have some great procedures and policies that they use when they do their preparation, they do their brief, they do their execution of the flight, and then when they come home they do a really good debrief. Now, I'm not saying we should do debriefs like the Blue Angels. How many people said in a Blue Angel debrief? Yeah, that's pretty, same way with the Thunderbirds. It's really intense, but it's good. Because when you walk out of there, everybody's on the same playing field, and everybody owned up, like that professionalism, accountable for your actions, and that's what you do. So, it's a lot of information. I know this is something that's been talked about for a long time. I think that there is a lot of impetus to get there, and I'm doing this because I believe that what you're doing is so important that we can't continue to do the same thing we've always done and expect it to change. We all know what that is. Something has to change, and I say the change is you coming together and sharing best practices, great ideas, and a focus, and that's why I put in the word focus on professionalism at everything we do. That's where the answer is. You know, I've always said that safety thing, when I was a lieutenant commander in the Navy and I was a safety officer, first brief I ever gave, stood up in front of an audience of naval aviators and I said, you know guys, safety's for sissies and NATOP's for new guys. All right? The NATOP's is the Bible. It's your airplane, how it flies, parameters, all the Venn diagrams, what the torque settings are on all the bolts, everything's in there. So I said the NATOP's -1 in the Air Force, that's only good if you don't know it. Once you know it, you need to review it, but the new guy needs to study it. It's his Bible. His or her Bible, right? So the new guy needs to study the Bible. And the safety for sissies, what's that all about? Well, guess what? Safety is, if you think about just being safe, you might as well live in a bubble. Life is never going to get good for you. Professionals do everything right every time without missing a step. And if you're a professional, you have a culture of professionalism which creates an environment of safety. So you only get to safety by being a professional. And that's the whole theory. And you guys are professionals. And I know you want to get there, and we're trying to do our best to help everybody attain the same level of professionalism across the spectrum. Then we all win this game. So, what other questions or comments, or we're learning it? Yes, sir, Doug.
So, training works. The R-22, the Mitsubishi, and the Cirrus, all are aircraft that had horrible safety records. In the case of the R-22 and the FAA, and then the Mitsubishi, the FAA mandated recurrent training. In the case of the Cirrus, they did it culturally. Which would we prefer?
There you go.
We would prefer culturally. But if you're going to prefer culturally, then you have to do it. Today, an NU2, I apologize to NU2 owners, but today an NU2 has an equivalent safety record to a King Air 90. Now that's just crazy. There is no way that that could be, because a King Air 90 is so much easier to fly than an NU2. But because of training, recurrent training, and mandated standards, the NU2 safety, the R-22 had a terrible safety record, and the FAA mandated training. Cirrus became the doctor killer of the 2010s, and the Cirrus group, they did it culturally. COPA has done a fantastic job of creating a culture of professionalism and training, and it has dramatically changed their safety record. So there are proven examples that, you know, a culture of professionalism can improve safety record dramatically, and that's what we need to do here.
Thanks, Doug. Dead on.
I applaud all of this, and I'm very safety conscious as well. I totally buy into it should be a culture. But I respectfully ask, what does the Association of Professional Warbird Operators provide that NWOC, EAA, Warbirds of other CAF, what would you be doing? What's the user benefit of one more alphabet soup organization that's not already being done?
Well, I would tell you, sir, with all respect, that all those organizations are great and they serve their members, but not everybody belongs to all of those. And there's several of you are in NWOC may not belong to another organization, or vice versa. So the goal here is to put an umbrella of knowledge out to everyone in all of the organizations, so that there's a level of standardization that comes up across the whole spectrum. Because in the CAF, they may have certain rules and regulations and policies that they implore, and they're the same with Warbirds of America. And again, with NWOC, they love the idea, but how are you going to get it done and share all this information with such a small staff? And our goal here is to do exactly that. So in essence, it's not another alphabet soup. Oh well, we just got to join this. The idea is here. It's going to be the umbrella with all the information on all platforms across all operations, whether it be a local flight or an air show flight or a photo mission. We're going to have everything out there, because there's a lot of people who's not in the room today that need this information.
So I'd like to add to what John said. If we don't speak with one voice, that's where the power is. So this whole thing started with a dinner between Greg Heiser, Fred Telling, and myself. And that was where the concept came from. And the bottom line is, if we don't regulate ourselves, we are going to be regulated. And if we all go and we have 10 different voices, or 500 different voices, and we go to the FAA or the NTSB or anyone else, and don't start answering some of these bad press that we have here, then we have no power, we have no legitimacy. 500 voices, nobody listens to. But one voice with an organization with thousands of members, supporters, be it vendors, organizations like the CAF or Warbirds of America. If we go to the FAA with one voice, we will be listened to. And if they say, hey, we have this issue within the Warbird community, and listen, nobody in here is perfect. I've got a little bit of an issue that we're dealing with right now. If we don't come together with one voice, they're going to start regulating us. We want to be able to go to the FAA and go, yeah, we hear you, we have a problem. Just like they did with the fast car when they went to ICAPS. We acknowledge that we have a problem. Here's what we recommend to the FAA based upon our membership's input as a solution to that problem. Otherwise, they're going to come down to us and they're going to say, you do this, you do that. And nobody in here wants to be in that position. So,
I'll take it a step further. I'm Josh with Doc, and Hank and I have had lots of conversations about this. Look, the bottom line is we're responsible for ourselves, and our mission as a broader industry, I like to refer to us as the Warbird Mafia. Our mission as a family is to preserve these warbirds and continue to tell the story of our nation's heroes and our nation's history. And if we're going to do that, I mean, everybody can see airplanes in museums, it's awesome, and we all have awesome airplanes in museums, but a lot of us operate those airplanes too. If we're going to continue to do that and tell the story, we've got to protect ourselves. It's up to us, or there won't be more regulation. It will be, you're not doing this anymore. That's really my fear. We can work through regulation. We've got great partnerships with the FAA. You've learned this week and this weekend that FAA stands ready to help us. But at some point, it's going to go above the FAA's head. It's going to go to Congress. And we all know how great Congress is, right? When they're not in session, they probably saving us money and doing good things when they're not in session. But when they're in session, it's going to come down to us. And they're just going to say, you know what, this is silly, we're done, you're done. And so we as an organization, as a family, need to get behind something like this. It's independent, it's your voice. And Doc is 100% committed, 110% committed. We've got to go do the right thing. We've got to instill a culture of safety among this team, our teams, our families at home. And if something flat doesn't work, or you've got somebody that you're concerned about, this is an opportunity for you to raise your hand and help educate. I think maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I think all of us get up in the morning, especially when we go to air shows and move our airplanes. We don't want anything bad to happen. We want to go do something fun and cool, right? We don't want to screw something up, but things happen, and we cut corners a lot. Not all of us do, but some do, and when we see something, we should all say something, right? And this opportunity, this organization is going to give us that opportunity to be able to say something, to educate. I'll pick on Sean a minute. If I see Sean's team, which, Sean, you know I don't think this would happen with you, but if I see Sean's team doing something that I'm concerned about, to protect the warbird industry, I should feel comfortable enough to come to Sean with a culture of safety and say, Sean, what are you doing? Well, how is this working? And I fear that this might not be good. The same way with us and Doc. We work with EAA and the CAF and Hank's team. An opportunity for you all to come say, hey, I don't agree, or are you sure you want to do this? And it's just a way for us to educate each other, get behind each other, and prevent this going outside of the FAA and the NTSB and it going to Congress and they say, hey, that's it, we're done. And I see some of you shaking your head. That could happen. That's my fear. So right now we've got good partnership, insurance, insurability, but this operators group is key to our survival. So I encourage you to join those of us who have joined and that are all in on this. It's a serious deal. So thanks for your time, John. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks so much.
Thanks, sir. And this is Sean, just one thing to add, and to your point, these are all these other alphabet organizations are great organizations, and they do great things. But what we're talking about here is an organization that has a singular focus, and none of those other alphabets have that. They have a broad variety of things that they're immersed in. If you want to be really good at something, you focus on that particular thing. And that's how we're going to see whatever Rosie defined as the definition of learning, change behavior over time. is to have that singular focus from an effective standpoint.
So then, Sean, is this a lobbying organization? What is the focus? We all are advocates of safety. We're all advocates of preserving and defending national treasures. I'm just asking a skeptical question of what is the singular focus? We all have that singular focus already. And absolutely about operating. All the restoration, operations is more of a focus.
We got a question over here. Whoop.
Okay, another question here.
I think that the goal here is to be able to make our voice heard so unanimously in the country that we don't have to wait until Congress does something because they're tweaked off at us because of this or that or the other. I think an example of the success of something like this happening is the NRA. The NRA supports our Second Amendment rights, and they have their voice in Congress. And they make things happen, and they prevent some bad things from happening too. It's a simple thing to say, you can't legislate stupidity with a gun. However, you can bring it to the attention of our organization, and things that we do can be brought to the attention of the Congress of the United States. And I think that's the primary goal and the primary mission here. And I think this is a really, really good idea. Just the NRA is an example of what can happen when you have a universal group of people putting their word to the people that make the laws.
Absolutely. And I think we've got a great voice there with Sam Graves, as you well know.
I've really enjoyed this conference and don't really have much of a dog in the fight, but I have big guns and I'm not an NRA. I've heard familiar stuff here the last couple of days. I haven't listened to all of it, but I personally think that the biggest threat to the existence to everybody in this group that operates airplanes that run on under low lead is the EPA letter I saw here a couple months back. I don't know how many people have seen the EPA letter, what the EPA is planning on doing with under low lead. And I can tell you, all this safety culture is very important. All this discussion is very important. But we can't run our airplanes, our big bore radio, without under low lead. And I tell you, what I read here a couple of months ago, and I forwarded it to some people I thought would have known about it, was earth-shattering, what the EPA is planning on doing. It's not the FAA and the fuel, it's the EPA.
Yeah, I think the gentleman on to my left, are we a lobbying organization or what are we going to do? The bottom line is this, and it's stark, and I hate to be this stark, but if we don't figure out how to deal with best practice in this industry, we're all different, okay? Everybody operates a different level, everybody has a different level of tolerance, but if we cannot, there's one thing about the Navy that you brought up that is very true. If you fall below a trend line, you are out of the organization. There is no conversation, you're gone. And if you don't fix it, you're really gone. You're toast, so to speak. So let's be frank. We all have, and I've run into it in the 13 years I've been here, you find out about somebody bending an airplane or doing something, and somebody says, well, that's Bob. And you know Bob. And I'm sorry to any Bobs in the room because I'm not calling you out. But there's always this, well, he's a good guy and this and that. And he's a good guy until he wrecks your airplane and you're reading about it. And the reality of that situation is internally, we are going to have to get to the point where we all kind of unify under some sort of best practice program as much as we can. If we cannot do that, we will be regulated. There's no question.
and the people that are standing on the other side of regulating us will weep crocodile tears about our loss and say how sad they are that air crew is gone, and then turn around and throw us right into the fire, saying, look at that, that's why they shouldn't be doing, fill in the blank, whether it's fuel or whatever. The people that are on the other side of this, they're down to the point of chasing farting cows, okay? I mean, with methane and all this other bullshit, and we're on the menu, to Dan's point about, but there'll be a means to an end, and our safety record and the problems that we have with safety will be one more way that they will stop us from doing this. So we have to look at best practice, and we have to figure out how to adopt it, and we just have to be relentless about it. I know it's not fun, and it's counterintuitive to some of the things that we do, but we don't have a choice. Because this regulation is coming, and if we can't figure out how to manage it, we will be managed. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Brett. So, the question came up about, are we going to be a lobbyist arm of some sort of organization? There's some great lobbyist organizations out there. Pete Buxton with his organization, GAMA, NDAA. I don't foresee us ever being registered on K Street. That's not what we do. But back in the early 2012, 14, 15 timeframe, I did get involved in aviation. And so I worked with a lobbying group and had discussions with all inspectors, at the time ranking senator for some of the transportation issues. And so I became a conduit, a subject matter expert, so to speak, for a specific segment of the aviation industry. So we had the knowledge, we had the expertise, and the K Street guys come driving around looking for the organizations that could speak, that if it was required could actually go and testify before Congress and the Senate. So we could become that subject matter expert. In fact, that is, I think, the intention of the group is to be a subject matter expert that speaks for the industry with a unified voice. Are we going to be a K Street registered group? No. But we are going to be the spokesman through which we can talk through the K Street guys to the Congress and House of Representatives.
So the reality is, our goal, very simple, very focused, is a unified voice to work on our culture, to raise the level of professionalism, and protect ourselves from regulation and save these fabulous assets and ensure that everybody comes home the way they took off. You had a question, sir?
Just up until now and then in the future, what do you see as your role with the press also?
Oh, with the press? Well, that's a really good question, and quite candidly, I think Hank sort of pointed out there, we come to subject matter experts, and if there is an event and we can help turn the image of the event from a negative to a positive, like whoever flew the airplane flew it into an area that was unpopulated, that would be our goal. Focus on the positive. So there is a potential in the future, if we're a unified voice and we're all working together, and you say, hey, we know what this individual did was good, is under the circumstance of an engine failure. Now, granted, we're not going to try to get in the ones where we know that was a bad actor that was out of control. We've got to be careful with that. But at the end of the day, we'd like to be the ones they come to and go, hey, what do you think about that? And we have a credible voice. And it won't be one person speaking. It will be a committee that will have come up with a statement and says, this is what we believe, not what had happened, but what we should see in it. What do we gather from it? And hopefully it will be something positive.
Let me answer that very, very quickly. We're still formulating a lot of things we're talking about. There's a lot of expertise in this room among the warbird community. People have dealt with some really, really horrible things. There's a lot of organizations that haven't had that opportunity where that terrible thing to deal with. And so one of the things we were talking about actually last night was having the ability to have a crisis management team as we move forward, and the organization becomes more mature, that if one of the organizations in this room has an issue, you call us, and we'll put a crisis management team together and work with you to help with the marketing efforts, I'm going to tell you, I've had to do this several times in the military, several times after the military. You have to be very, very, very careful from a legal perspective, from a marketing perspective, and most of us don't have that talent or don't have those resources. And that needs to be a part of the resources that this group does provide. But we're not there yet, but I think in the future that's where we need to go. Great point.
The question I have that I want to look up, are there organizational memberships or just individual memberships?
Right now, we're looking to get individual memberships. We would like to think that the organizations, and some have, will make substantial donations in support of what we're trying to accomplish. But again, it's an individual. We don't want to say that, well, let's just use Warbirds of America, that they just join en masse. We want the individuals to be in there because they're the ones it really applies to. Again, it's for the people, by the people, right? It's not just another organization that comes in and says we're going to join. No, the organization would be, we support you and we're going to make a donation to continue the work that you're doing, but we want all of our members to join independently.
One thing here, we kind of went through a loss of the Liberty Bell back in 2011. John, yes, he was flying when he caught on fire, because we all know about that loss of that airplane. So obviously no loss of life, but we were covered up for weeks because of the press, and we talked about this as these incidents come about. One thing we did is a total gag order on any discussions, any social media discussion. I think social media is a great deal. And everybody, just like the other gentleman, wants to go to the defense and say this is not the case or statistics, whereas what most people don't think about is when you answer to it, even the lunacy of the people that are kind of shock jocks of aviation that are looking for the hits for their, they want to business in the public. They want to fight with you online. And just the simplicity of going in, because these are friends of ours, we want to defend them. We want to say condolences to the family. I mean, we don't do any of that. And I mean, if we didn't do any of that, we told our members and the people that fly, and unfortunately I get fly for a lot of organizations, we discuss it. I mean, they were knocking on our neighbors' doors. They came and they followed John's wife into a bathroom trying to get statements. The one thing that you don't do is you don't answer to it. You let them. Again, I'm already, what you say, the church of the little approach or whatever that I can pray to. I love the idea of best practices to having a voice that you can send it to, because again, I've attempted the briefing at ICAS about how to handle media. In our case, it's one person that makes a statement. I made a statement when we had that, and I left it nowhere else. 2 weeks later, when they're still trying to give a statement, we didn't give it to them, so we didn't feed that story over and over and over again. So again, just a simple act going in and saying, condolences, or some of the people that were in the flight that were there, there was some lunacy online. They feel the need to go defend it, because anything you do know, social media is not the place to go in there and pick that fight, because you're just pushing it back up there, and again, it's all about hits. And so again, I'll be one of the first person to go in and put in kind of the best practice to, for our members and your members, just to say, don't answer to any of that. Send it to one person and let them make a statement, and that statement is done forever. Because again, it's going to get, when these things happen, they're going to go through the regulatory, NTSB, FAA, the people that work with them. It does not need to be vetted in the public. And unfortunately, as we know, there's several people that kind of make their living off of being expert analysis on the internet. We know who those people are, and I don't want to feed that at all. We've done a pretty good job of not doing that in our organization, so I like the idea of all the organizations kind of vetting this to one place. And if there wasn't, if you guys took that on, if there wasn't one of these in the future, everything goes to there. We don't say a word to include, not even, I can't confirm, deny anything. It's just talk to these people and then give them nowhere to go. And thank you for, other than being an Navy guy, I think
At least I know both my parents.
Okay, I think...
Well, I got one guy's been holding his hand up over here quite a while. We got to give him a break.
Okay. All right, I have a question.
Okay.
I was talking to Greg Knight a couple of weeks ago because I get my insurance bill. And he brought this point up to me. My first reaction was that same reaction.
got another pile of alphabet soup, and what are we going to do here? We chatted about that a little bit, and what I come to think about is CAF serves the CAF, and they're awesome. They got great safety practices. NAT, I'm just telling Lumpy how much I think NAT has grown in the last couple of years with Skylight magazines. So, but they serve NAT, EAA, Warbirds. They serve EAA Warbirds, but it's also an EAA organization. ICAS, airship stuff. This organization, when we say we and our, it's about Warbirds. Okay, so it's not EAA we, it's not CAF we, it's Warbirds we, it's Warbirds our. So my initial reaction was, God, I don't know. But Mike, thanks for standing up and doing this. I think it's going to be a great organization on that part of it. So thank you.
And I didn't plant that. He just did it on his own. Great. Do you have time for
10 seconds.
Here, Greg Gibson, real quick.
Hi guys, thanks so much for welcoming us in and having us here to have this presentation. It's really important. A couple of corrections. Postal, thank you. Pointed out on the slide there that Fat Fingered the website. So as you can see, we're not perfect. But I do want to point out that a lot of people just grabbed the card on the table. We did have the right website, thank God. And have already signed up. Ray, thank you so much. Greg early on, Larry Kelly and his team. It's really important that you know that we've got your best interests in mind, and that this is an umbrella organization that will go to and recommend new people to where they should go with NATA, EAA, all the various things that they need to do in order to get into the business, because it's not lost on us that there's mostly gray hair in the room. So as younger people come in, and as these people and these connections to education programs and all that sort of thing are out there, we want to make that connection part of the deliverable as well. So one last item, just that we didn't even really see coming. I had an email, just randomly, an air show came across our website and asked the question, I'm looking to hire Warbirds for my air show. Can you make a recommendation? So we're sourcing that through our team, figuring out how we should answer the question and what sort of thing that would be. But that's the type of thing that can come our way from the input from people who aren't here. And that can be a benefit to those of us who are and those of us who aren't. So the website, apwo.org, you can go right in there and sign up now. Like Mike said, it's going to be for the rest of the weekend, $50. After that, through the 15th of May, you'll be a founding member. But thank you so much, and Lex, it's great to work with the most arrested man in aviation.
Yeah, right. So like I said, I'd like to think that everybody that raised their hand at the beginning of the presentation that doesn't want to have another accident and wants no more regulation, you'll be signing up. So thank you all very much. Let's have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks, Lex, Greg. A couple things for clarification in the Q&A session. We heard a comment about unleaded aviation gas and that's the next